So today I just wanted to start the basics of language first of all. So what is programming language? Why we need to learn a programming language? What is the purpose of programming language? Okay. So a programming language is learned to develop a software. The main reason to learn a programming language is nothing but to develop a software. And software can be categorized into two types: system software and you can say application software. Okay, here system software means, suppose I have taken a new laptop and I want to start that laptop, but we have to install a system software known as operating system. So OS comes under system software. And what are the examples you can say? Windows is there, Linux is there, Mac OS is there, and Ubuntu is there. All this comes under operating system which need to be installed before starting a laptop. Okay, that comes under system software. Now coming to Windows application, we have like software applications like MS Office. Means in this OS, whatever the softwares you are using, those are nothing but application software. Like Adobe is there, VLC is there, games what we play in a system, notepad, calculator, all this comes under application software. Okay, so the only reason why we run a programming language to develop all those things like system software you can say, or application software. And now what does system understands? First thing, system understands only one language. The language is nothing but machine language. It understands only one language known as machine language, where one is yes and zero is no for a particular system. Okay, it does not understand any other language. Now this machine language is very difficult because if I write millions of ones and zeros, in that millions of ones and zeros, if one is missing or zero is missing, we can't debug it properly. We can't find out where it is missing, right? For that reason, to overcome this drawback, they developed a language known as assembly language. So after the basic machine language, they developed a language known as assembly language, which had some instructions. Means if I want to perform any action or any task or operation, we use these instructions. Like suppose move a comma 10 means 10 value is stored into a. Okay, so next move b comma 20, so 20 value is moved into b. Add a comma b means this a and b values are getting added in this particular system. Okay, and here for adding two values like 10 and 20, I have written three instructions: 1, 2 and 3. Suppose I want to add again two values, again three instructions will be written. If I want to add again two values, again three instructions will be written. So what's happening here? The length of the code is increasing, right? And it is not a better way of writing the program. For that reason, they introduced another language known as programming language. Okay, so in this programming language, we use C equals to A plus B, which is the easiest way of writing a operation. Now we all know that system only understands machine language, so it can't understand what is assembly or what is this particular programming language means. So how to convert this assembly language to machine language? Then we need softwares. So what this softwares will do? These softwares convert, like assembler is a software which converts this assembly language into machine language. Okay, so this assembly language, entire language has been converted into machine language with the help of assembler. Why we are doing this? Because system does not understand assembly language. It understands only programming language. Okay, and here we have a compiler, and this compiler is used to convert all the programming language, like this programming language, into machine language. Like few compilers will be there which converts to assembly language, and the assembler converts them to machine language, and few compilers directly convert the programming language to machine language. Okay, and among this
So
we,
what is the, excuse me, sir.
yeah, tell me. Now if you are saying a programming language was there, so the first programming language will be there, right? So what's the first programming language? It's nothing
C.
but Fortran. Okay, so Fortran is the first programming language, and it was developed in the year 1954 by a company named as IBM. So IBM developed this particular Fortran language. Okay, then what do you mean by Fortran? Formula translation. So here Fortran means formula, tran means translation. So I said at the starting, any programming language is used to develop software. So either system software or application software. Here Fortran is used to develop mathematic and scientific application. So application we are trying to develop, and this is nothing but like sine, cos, e power log, or all these concepts we are using to develop an application. Okay, so now Fortran can develop only mathematical and scientific application. Suppose if I want to develop any other application, I can't develop by using mathematic, like by using Fortran. So again we need other languages like Pascal was there, COBOL was there, and BCPL was there, CPL was there, Algol was there. So what are these? All programming languages. Why we needed all these programming languages means each programming language was limited to few applications. So which is better? A programming language trying to develop one application, or a programming language which develops all the applications? If we use one programming language to develop all the application, then it is better. For that reason, they introduced a language known as C language at this moment. So C language was introduced in the year 1972, and after C language we had C++, which was introduced in the year 1984. So what is the difference between C and C++ means? C language was structured programming language, and C++ was OOPS oriented, object oriented programming system. Okay, and here what's the difference means, suppose in a C language program, if I have declared int a comma b comma c and I have written some instructions, and after the 100th instruction I wanted another variable known as d. So if I try to declare here the d variable, I'll get error saying that you can't declare the variable here. Means in C language, if you want to declare any variable, again you have to go to the declaration part. In the declaration part, again you have to declare the variable. Okay, so this is the problem in C language. To overcome that, C++ was used, which was OOPS oriented.
Yeah.
Here, after C++, we had a Java language which was developed in the year 1992 and which also uses OOPS concept.
Oops.
And we had one more programming language like PHP, or you can say .NET. First we'll see PHP language, which was developed in the year
Okay.
1994, which also follows OOPS concept.
Oops.
And
So
.NET was there, which was again uses, like it was developed in 2002. Again it uses like OOPS concepts only used. If all these languages are using the OOPS concept, then which is the better language which we have to use, or which is the standard one? Suppose if I am having OOPS means object oriented programming system,
okay.
where you have few principles like class, object, encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, abstraction. So there are some
Properties.
6 properties. Okay. So
Okay.
these 6 principles are followed by Java. So Java follows all the 6 principles.
Okay.
Whereas PHP follows only 3 principles.
Okay.
That is class, object and inheritance. So here among Java and PHP, this PHP uses less principles and less standard than Java, which follows all the principles. Next, Java is an open source. Open source in the sense freely available. Whereas .NET is a paid version, means you need to buy the particular version in order to do the programming, in order to write a code. That's a reason Java is the more standard language. And if you know Java, you can cover other languages like Hadoop, Selenium testing, Salesforce, ABAP, model in SAP, and here a lot of other things like Android also you can say. So all these things can be covered if you know the OOPS principles or the Java language. Okay, it will be a easier things or the stage for these languages. All these programming languages we are using OOPS concept. So what is OOPS we have to see now. Okay, so before starting the OOPS, I'll just give an introduction to what C language was initially. Like if I write a small program in C language, I'm writing void main int a. Int means integer which stores integer values only, and here A equals to 10, B, or you can say A equals to 50, and A equals to 30. Printf is a function which prints the value.
Yeah.
So I just want to print the value here.
Okay.
And now 3 times I'm trying to print the value.
Yeah.
Now tell me, what will be the output 3 times?
30.
Here 30, like 30, 30, and 30.
30. Yes,
So
sir.
why we got 30 means, int means 2 bytes. In Windows operating system it occupies 2 bytes of memory.
Yeah.
And here if you have this A which stores first 10 value, then 50 is trying to insert it in this particular A, then 50 will be stored. So next, if you have 30 stored in A, 30 will overwrite 50 and 30 will be stored. So here 3 times 30, 30, 30 value is getting printed. What do you understand by that? Single variable can store only one value. It cannot store multiple values. To overcome this drawback, they introduced a concept known as arrays in C language. Means if I want to store multiple values, then I have to use a concept known as arrays, where int a of 3 means 10, 50, 30. Like 3 means 3 locations, and these 3 values can be stored in a single variable or represented by a single variable, you can say, like 10, 50, 30 stored in a single variable known as a. And here on a condition these 3 values are getting stored. The condition is nothing but 10 is integer, and 50 is integer, 30 is also integer itself, right? So 3 values must be of integer type itself, and that is the condition. Means you can store n number of values in a single variable, but on a condition that it can store only same data type. Means there is a drawback in arrays concept. What's the drawback? You can say it can store only same data type itself. It cannot store different data types. So in order to store the different data types, we are using a concept known as structures. To store different data types, we are using a concept known as structure. Like struct is a keyword which is used to declare the structure variables, and student is a structure name, and this block is ending with a semicolon to indicate it's a separate block, and we have the variables declared inside the structure. So there is a difference between the declaration of void main and in the structure block. If I say int a is given here and int id is declared here, int a allocated memory means 2 bytes of memory is allocated directly to the a variable here. There is no restriction. And inside the structure block for int id, there is no memory getting allocated. Means for the structure block, how many variables we declare, for all the variables there is no memory allocated. So int does not occupy 2 bytes, float does not occupy 4 bytes. So there is no space available for the structure block, and without the space you can't store any value. So we need to allocate the memory for the student, right? So how we can do that? By creating a term known as object. Means here we have to create a term known as object by using the syntax structure name, then the particular struct keyword also should be used, and along with that structure name we can give that particular object name also. So what is Rahul here? An object. Okay, so here Rahul indicates a memory block for the entire structure. Like for int it occupies 2 bytes, and for the float it occupies 4 bytes. Total 6 bytes of memory is indicated by Rahul. Like here in RAM we have a memory block. Inside that memory block we have an ID and we have a percentage. And here this ID has 2 bytes and percentage has 4 bytes. This entire thing is represented by Rahul with a particular memory of 6 bytes. So totally 6 bytes are there for Rahul. Now I want to see the memory. I'm saying that ID is having 2. I'm saying that Rahul is having 6 bytes. Means in Rahul memory only we have ID. In Rahul memory only we have percentage. And I said that for direct ID there is no memory. For direct percentage there is no memory. Right? So in order to see that, we have a operator known as size of in C language. Okay, so I just opened a compiler in online where I'm writing a struct student, and in this student we have ID and percentage. Along with that a main is there where I have written a printf the size of A. So I have to declare the A variable, right? So I'll declare the A variable here. So if I compile and execute this, I got the size of as 4, right? So that size of is nothing but 4, you can see. But suppose if I try to see this particular printf where ID has been given, means if I compile now you will get error saying that ID that doesn't have any particular ID, like ID cannot be understood. Okay, so why it's happening? Because there is no memory for ID inside the structure block. For percentage also there is no memory. If I write instead of ID percentage, then also we'll get the same error.
Same
To
thing. Okay.
allocate the memory, we need to create a term known as object. For the syntax, struct student Rahul is a memory block and Rahul contains 6 bytes of memory. So if you want to see that directly, I am writing instead of A Rahul. Okay, so
Okay.
if I
Okay.
compile and run, I'll get some like here it's a Linux terminal, that's the reason I'm getting 8. But if you have a Windows terminal, then you will get this particular thing as 6. Okay,
Okay.
because in Linux we'll have 4 bytes of memory for integer.
Okay.
Now if I want to see how much memory is there for ID, then how to specify means we have a particular dot operator which is used to access the structure variables. So from this block if you want to access, you need to have the memory. This is the memory,
Yeah.
and based on the memory if you give the variable name, then you can access directly. Like if I compile now and if I execute again, so we got this 4 bytes, right?
Yeah.
Size of is 4. And
Yeah.
if you see, if I compile it with Rahul dot percentage, then again this particular output will be size of will be 4 and 4. So
Yeah.
4 for ID and 4 for
4 for.
percentage.
Yes.
Okay, so this entire memory is nothing but 8 bytes in Linux terminal and 6 bytes in Windows terminal, because integer varies from uh, operating system to operating system. Okay,
Yes.
now if I create one more object like Kiran, so what will happen here? Another memory block will be getting created, right? So if I say Rahul, and Kiran are there, I can access both the times like rahul.id, kiran.id, right? So
Yes, yes.
if I write the same program without creating object or without the structure, I'll write the entire program without structure now. In a single variable, we can store only one value. So two students are there means ID1 to ID2. Two variables are required for Rahul as well as Kiran, you can say, right?
Okay. Yes, yes.
Now, if I have 60 variables, then 60 students are there. So 60 variables will be declared, right?
Yeah,
Or else you can declare it as array, like ID of 60. But array drawback is same data type and we cannot store different data types. And if I have declared ID of 60 and only 10 students came, so 50 blocks are wasted, right?
yeah.
So the memory cannot be increased or decreased dynamically for an array. To overcome these drawbacks, we are using a concept known as
Structure.
structures. Okay,
Yeah,
so here in these structures, the ID variable has been declared only once, and I was able to use it twice based on two objects known as Rahul and Kiran. Means variable can be declared only once, can be used multiple number of times based on the memory blocks known as Rahul and Kiran. Now, what is a like extension of structure? How can we still extend the structure means? Here, if I writing a function, one function for one student, then two functions for two students, 10 functions for 10 students, and 60 functions for 60 students will be required. So, the prolonging the program, okay? Here, if you write the function inside a structure, then it can be written only once. We can access it n number of times based on m number of objects. But according to the definition of structure, structure can have only data types. We cannot store any functions inside the structure. Means we can't write function inside a structure block. It is a collection of different data type itself. So to extend the structure concept, they introduced a concept known as class in C++, where I can write both variables as well as you can say functions, which is not done inside the structure. Okay, and this is a concept known as class. It's a collection of variables as well as functions, you can say. Okay, we should know what is OOPS concept because C++ follows OOPS, Java follows OOPS, and a lot of languages are there which follows OOPS, right? So
yes, yes.
OOPS is nothing but object oriented programming system, right? And in
Yes,
that we have a class concept and a object concept, you can say. Like OOPS we have class, object. Just now we have seen that class is a collection of variable and function,
and functions.
and
Yes,
object is a memory block for that particular class. Because structure also we are creating an object and that object indicates the memory block for the structure, right? Now,
okay.
apart from this programmatical terminology, I just want to know in a simpler manner what is class and object. Consider that in your surroundings, what are the objects are present,
Laptop, mobile,
right?
bottle.
So
Yeah.
all these are objects which are visible to you, means
Yes,
object exists physically, and here every object has some properties. Like you can say what is the color of the bottle, black, blue, brown, and those objects can be used to perform some action, right?
Yes, sir.
So here, if I say what is not an object, then what will be the example?
What is not an object which we cannot see?
Right, which we can't see means doesn't exist physically.
Yeah.
Example, air,
Air,
dreams, thoughts, energy, feeling. All this
feelings.
comes under not an object. And
Yes, sir.
here, if it exists physically, I said object. If it
Yes, sir.
doesn't exist, I'll say class. Simple. I'm giving a term now.
Okay.
Doesn't exist.
Oh,
Okay. So object
okay.
has some properties which are visible and it can perform some action. And class, it doesn't exist physically. Okay. Now,
Okay. So I thought class is a group of objects. Isn't that correct?
we'll come to that. We'll see this thing.
Okay. Okay.
Fruit is a class or a
Okay.
object. What is that?
Fruit is an object
Mango
which
is a
we can
class or object.
object. I can't hear you.
Apple, class or object.
Object.
What's the color of apple?
Red,
What's the color of
green,
mango?
yellow.
What's the color of fruit?
Depending on which fruit it is, it changes.
That's what. You are able to say mango, apple color. Then what is the color of fruit I'm asking? So fruit, like mango is a fruit, apple is a
Yes,
fruit.
sir.
So fruit
Yeah.
is a category, right? So fruit is not an object. Fruit is a
Class. Okay. Okay.
class. Now, the class is a collection of objects or a group of
Yeah.
objects. It's the same
Yes.
definition, right? Where
Yes. Yes.
fruit is a collection of mango and apple, you can say.
Yeah.
Now, coming to rose, class or object.
Object.
Flower, class or object.
Class.
Right. Animal, class or object.
Class.
So, at the last, person, class or object.
Class.
Person is a class.
Class.
Rahul, class or object.
Object.
Now, every object has some properties, right?
Yes.
Like say, age, height,
Height.
weight,
Weight.
name. And every object can perform an action like eat, sleep, read, eat,
Play.
are the actions, right?
Yeah.
Now we have spoken generally. If I want to write a Java program or like a class, here class person is a class, right?
Yes.
Int age is a particular variable, integer variable. Height is a float variable. Void eat is a function or a method in Java we can say. Okay, so class is a collection of variables as well as functions. And
Yes.
these functions are also known as methods in Java. And we have seen that class doesn't exist physically. Means here there is no space allocated for age. There is no space allocated for height or eat or read. So without memory you can't perform any action. So in order to allocate the space, we create a term known as object, like person, Rahul. So what is Rahul now? It's an object. Don't go for the syntax. I'm just saying the concept here that class doesn't have
Okay.
any memory and Rahul represents the memory for a class. So here a memory block will be created with a memory name known as Rahul. And here, can I store age equals to 26? Is it possible? Does the
Yes.
age have memory?
Oh no.
No, right? Here age
Yeah.
doesn't have memory. Rahul has the memory where you can say Rahul dot age equals to 26. Every
Yeah.
time if you are trying to access a class or a structure member, you need to
Mm.
specify the dot operator which
Okay.
access the particular variables, or you can say Rahul dot eat means
Okay.
that Rahul memory block will have a age of 26 value, and you can execute the eat method here in Rahul. Okay,
Okay.
so for one person one object, if I say Kiran means what, another memory block, I can
Yes.
access Kiran dot age now, Kiran dot eat, and here the functionalities of Rahul will be differing from functionalities of
Kiran.
Kiran, right?
Yes.
So next thing what we have to know is nothing but in Java there are a lot of classes. For every class there is no memory, and if you want to access the variables or methods, we need to create object. Object is nothing but a memory block for a class. That's the same thing we have to follow every time. So every time we'll see a class, variable, method and an object. Suppose I'll give a better example, like a classroom is there. Consider the classroom as a RAM. I'm having 100 chairs in a classroom and only 20 students came. So what will happen? The remaining 80 chairs are wasted. The same
Yeah.
thing in the RAM also. The memory location are getting wasted. Suppose I'll remove all the chairs, and if a student is coming, I'll ask bring a chair and sit. So if 20 students are coming, only 20 chairs will be occupied, and the remaining
Yes.
80 chairs can be used somewhere else in other classrooms. The same
Yeah.
way here also. If you are using a particular property in action, create a memory, use it. If you want for another person, create another object. Like that, n number of objects can be created. That's the principle of Java. That's the reason we say OOPS, object oriented. Means
Okay.
everything revolves around object itself. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you
Okay.
understand this basic principle of class and object, then you can learn Java. There is no problem in that. Just you have to understand that for every class there is no memory. And if
Yes.
you want to allocate the memory, we need to create the object. By this, I just conclude this demo part. So that's it for today then.